Welcome to the University of Findlay's Arts and Culture Show. I am Sharinda Welton, your host, and today I am very pleased to introduce you to Mr. Matthew Shapiro.
Hi Sharinda, how are you?
I am great. Welcome to the set.
Glad to be here. This is a cool set. I like the flowers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're thinking spring.
Love it, love it.
You are an amazing individual, and we are going to talk about your amazingness, please.
Happy to.
Okay, so you are currently on a national speaking tour.
Correct.
And you work with both professionals as well as collegiate students.
Correct.
In leadership as well as different themes, getting out of your comfort zone. What are a couple of the other presentations that you currently are touring with?
So I have a nice catalog, I guess you could say, of different topics that I talk about. I have a leadership program that I do, and that sort of helps the audience kind of figure out what kind of leader they best are. I have 5 different leadership models that I've developed, so we go through all 5 of those and hope the audience kind of gets a nice leadership model out of that. And then I have a program that's called Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone. And that's, a little bit of my background, my story. There's some disability etiquette in there, and then there's some sort of takeaways at the end that I hope the audience can use to sort of figure out how they can get out of their comfort zones and try new things and experience new things. I'm currently working on a relationship show, and I also have a disability etiquette show that I do. So a nice wide array of different topics that I cover, which is always exciting.
And you say disability aware etiquette show.
Yes.
But it's actually a presentation, but you kind of look at it as edutainment, where you want it to be entertaining for the audience, but also they realize I'm getting something out of this educationally.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. No one likes a presentation where someone's just talking to them for an hour. That's kind of very boring. But so I try to take all of my presentations and infuse a lot of audience interaction, infuse some humor, hopefully. I hope people think I'm funny. I try to make it different. And I try to make it really a conversation where it's really a two-way conversation between me and the audience. I really want to get audience participation because it's not just a show about me. I really want to hear perspectives of my audience. I want them to sort of challenge me on certain things or ask me questions. And I think if you can do that in a show, that's where you get the most rich and fulfilling shows, because it's not just a lecture. And I think that's what makes kind of the work that I do special, hopefully.
Well, and I agree with you. Your presentations are very special. I had the honor of meeting you a few years ago in Cincinnati,
yes.
And then from that, friendship evolved.
Correct.
And I've had the opportunity to see you on national showcases present, and then I also had the opportunity to go through one of your entire trainings on get out of your comfort zone. And I remember that just a couple months ago, I was down in Tennessee and did something that was very scary for me. I rode one of those little chairs with no seatbelt, no helmet, no anything up the side of a mountain. And I was freaking out, and on social media, and you were right there saying, yes, you're out of your comfort zone.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, so it was neat to be in the presentation with you, but
Sure.
What really brought it home to me is when I was trying not to hyperventilate, and you were right there on social media going, that's my girl, you go for it. So thank you for that. That was so cool.
Yeah.
But that presentation is really special because you open yourself up.
Yeah.
You give a lot of really cool information on facts and figures, but then you bring it home by being very honest about your personal story.
Sure.
And I was wondering if you would like to share a little bit of that with us and how that program evolved for you.
Sure.
And why you can so honestly share with those who attend that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always have considered myself an open book. I think if you are able to take personal experiences and sort of intertwine them into presentations or anything when you're interacting with your audience or just anyone in the community, I think that makes those situations that much more rewarding and powerful. So I'm always telling people, yes, please ask me whatever you want to ask me. Like, very rarely have I ever come across a question that I'm not comfortable answering. And so, I think that also allows the audience to then connect with me even more. And they can it's so funny. So often when I do a lot of these presentations, a lot of the feedback I get is like, wow, he's so normal. And like, that is the ultimate, like, because I really am just a guy. I just happen to have to do things a little bit differently than the way you or any other able-bodied individual has to do it. But that doesn't mean I can't do it, or I can't do amazing things. And so anytime I can bring that personal anecdote into it, or bring humor into it, I think that really puts the audience at ease and sort of makes them realize, what he's doing is pretty cool and pretty powerful.
And I agree with you. So you are talking about getting out of a comfort zone, and you're talking about being an able-bodied individual. And there are a lot of sad assumptions and fables out there about people and their abilities. And I know it wasn't 75 years ago that people that were told that they had a disease or that they were wheelchair bound, they were shoved in a hospital someplace and didn't get to live life. They were immediately told, you're a mistake, basically. And so fast forward in our history, and individuals, they would be similar diagnoses, are going on to be megastars. And I would like to talk about that, because I know of students who are in accidents in high school and they're wheelchair bound and they're told they can never go to college. I've had friends that were born with diseases and their doctors strongly discourage their parents for sending them off to college. Do you believe that people that are wheelchair bound should not go to college?
Not at all. I graduated from college.
I know you did. That's why I asked.
Thanks for teaming me up. That worked out well. I graduated from college. I graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University in Virginia. I was there for 4.5 years. Got my degree. I got a degree in Interdisciplinary Studies, which means I kind of created my own degree. And so that degree had components of sociology, psychology, public policy, and special education. And then because I had all of my credits in sociology, I was able to get a second major in sociology and a minor in psychology. So I was very busy during my time at VCU. But no, I think really what you're hitting at with your question is still all of the stigmas that are that are around when it comes to disability. We have come a long way from what you mentioned, and there's something I talk about in a lot of my shows. It's the ugly laws, and that was as recently as the 1970s. If you were considered ugly or unsightly, they could throw you in jail because they didn't society didn't want to see people with disabilities in that way. And so we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of stigma that exists. I mean, I'm out in public a lot of times, and I get a lot of people come up to me and they tell me, "I'm glad you're out today," right? And like, that's not. I don't think
they genuinely mean they're supporting you.
Well, but that is the tricky thing, right? Because I don't think people. There's not a negative intention behind that, but they don't realize that what they're saying is like, you definitely scratch your head in those instances. And when those interactions occur for me, I kind of am polite and am appreciative, but I think that particularly shows like we're not over stigma. And people still have this perception that like I as a person with a disability can't be out in the community and can't be doing public speaking and can't be doing everything that I've been very fortunate enough to do in my career. And until we can break through that barrier, we're going to continue to kind of come up against those instances, which, I think we'll get there. I don't know when it'll happen, but I do think we still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm excited that we've made it as far as we have.
I agree.
But I agree that we have a long way to go.
Yes.
So public law was part of that interdisciplinary major.
Yeah.
And you've done some awesome, cool things with that.
I'm a political nerd. So
yes, you are.
Anytime I can be involved in the political process, I try to. Virginia is a very unique state when it comes to public policy. Right now in particular with everything that's going on with our governor, but I was fortunate enough, I've done 2 internships in DC. I interned in the Department of Transportation, in their, basically it was an internal office that helped provide accommodations to the people that worked at the Department of Transportation. And then in 2012, I was very fortunate and blessed to intern for the Obama administration. And so I was there on election night when he won re-election, and it was very, very cool to be in that atmosphere. Really, for me, it was sort of challenging myself, because I was in a class with students from Yale and Harvard, and I kind of use that as a story in a lot of my shows, because one of the things I was trying to do when I applied for the internship was to prove not only to myself that I could be in an environment like the White House and sort of hang, so to speak, but also continue to work through that stigma that shows, like, yes, people with disabilities can work as an intern in the White House, can be CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, can start their own businesses, can do amazing things.
Are an important part of the team.
Yes, exactly. And they can pull their weight, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was one of the big reasons why I not only was I excited to work there, but that was one of the big motivators for me as to why I did it. Mm-hmm. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I could hang with such incredibly talented people from great institutions, but then also just continue to break down that societal stigma. And that's something I strive to do every day in every interaction that I have. One of my other favorite things to do is interact with young children. And so often they'll want to come up to me, and basically the interaction will start with, "Why don't your legs work?" Mm-hmm. And so I always view that as an opportunity to educate that young person and say, yes, my legs don't work, but I'm kind of like a transformer because my wheelchair does really, really cool things. Or I get to play video games all day because I have a joystick on my wheelchair. And so I'm always,
and they get that.
Yes.
They can comprehend and understand that. Yeah.
Correct. I put it in a frame of reference where they understand it. And if I'm in an environment where I know they can't, run me into anything, I'll even let them try to push some buttons on my wheelchair just to have that experience. Because my goal with that is, they can then have that experience to draw on the next time they see somebody with a disability or somebody who looks a little different. Because so often I would venture a guess to say, that youngster will go back to school the next day and they will have a classmate mm-hmm. that will have a disability, or they'll see somebody else out in the community that'll have a disability, and they'll be able to say, I can go up to him and I can talk to him. I don't have to be afraid to do that because I had that interaction with Matthew in whatever environment we were in. So I take every day and every opportunity to try and educate. Like I said, I'm an open book. Mm-hmm. I love to use my story and use my experiences to enlighten people. I don't do any of this work for my own personal benefit. My whole goal is to make people realize that people like me are just people. Mm-hmm. We just have
You're
to do
a voice
things different.
for others.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Well, and I think it's cool that you are open to working with the children, because number one, it takes a lot of guts.
Yes.
Because so many times children are trained not to talk to strangers.
Sure.
But number two, you're also empowering them to be an ambassador.
Correct.
Because they may go back to their classroom and not have someone there that's in a wheelchair or with a visible disability.
Have a learning disability.
But they are able to go back into the classroom and have a conversation if with no one else, their teacher, I met someone really special, really cool.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the disability, it's
Right.
because of the joystick or the transformer,
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they become the ambassador, as well as they get to be given permission to think that way.
Sure, and I think that's where thinking about diversity is so important. I'm not even solely doing it, I am doing it to expose them to disability, but what I also am doing is exposing them to diversity. Yeah. Right? Because diversity is such a big buzzword in today's community, and it's great that we don't see people that always look just like us. Mm-hmm. And
it's important too.
It's important. And honestly, one of my favorite groups to present for is youngsters, because they have no filter.
They're innocent,
and the fact that they have no filter just makes their questions, one, hilarious, and two, just they're curious. Uh-huh. And so anytime
they're hungry,
right?
They're
want to know.
sponges.
They want to know. And so anytime I can talk to elementary school age students, it's always so fun because I never know what they're going to say. I never know what questions they're going to ask, and so I always have to stay on my toes, which is always fun.
So I want to go back to, I started with the question of, tell us about getting out of your comfort zone. And then we proceeded to talk about all these amazing things that people that are able-bodied would never think to do.
Sure.
So someone watching might say, well, where's the comfort zone he had to get out of? He's comfortable with everything.
Sure.
So can we go back and talk about that a little bit? Because there was a tipping point for you where that decision was made of, this isn't going to control me.
Right.
This is what I'm going to do.
Right, and I thank you for asking that question, because that is a huge part of how I've grown as an individual. And ironically enough, my comfort zone was my wheelchair, right? And so I never used to want to get out of my chair. I have severe back issues. I deal with pain on a regular basis. Now, that's not to make any of our people watching to make them feel bad. It just is what it is. It's my reality. And so very rarely did I like to get out of my chair for that reason, and then for the other reason of I don't transfer on my own. So I'm always in need of people to help me move. And so it's a very vulnerable situation when somebody has to help you move, because when people are picking me up, in that 3-second interaction where they're helping me get from point A to point B, I have no control over that situation. So I'm just hoping,
totally blind trust,
hoping that I don't end up on the floor, which I have in the past in some instances, or I'm not hurting myself or the people that are helping me move, because I'm not the lightest feather in the flock, so to speak, and so it's kind of scary to and it is a huge vulnerability incident and a huge instance where trust is so important. And so because of those two factors, for a long time, I didn't get out of my chair. And so I was not fully experiencing what life had to offer, because so many of the amazing things that I'm doing now, required me to get out of my chair. And probably almost 4 or 5 years ago now, a friend of mine told me, about a program called No Barriers. And No Barriers is a program where people with disabilities, whether they acquired them or had them at birth or they were in the military, they go and they do different adaptive sports activities and adventure sports activities. And kind of the tagline is, there's no barrier that's ever in your way. You can kind of always go through whatever barrier's in your way. And so I went that first year, and I really tried to push myself to get out of my comfort zone, my wheelchair, to just experience new things. And so I've gone back, I've now been to 4 different summits. One year I rock climbed up a rock wall.
With or without your wheelchair?
Without.
Okay.
And so did that, and then they put me in a special bucket, and so I did pull-ups to get to the top of the rock wall. A couple years ago, I actually got in a special wheelchair that was an off-road wheelchair. So instead of wheels on it, it had tank treads on it.
Yeah.
And so that chair allows you to go up mountains and go over really crazy
terrain.
Yeah, and crazy terrain.
Yeah.
And so we took that chair, and me and my mom and my dad and some other friends of ours, we hiked up a mountain. And so
that's very empowering.
Yeah, that was so cool to get to the top of that mountain and know that there's equipment that can help me do that, or that I'm capable of doing that. And so every year I go back to No Barriers, I'm always trying to figure out, okay, what's that next step up from hiking up a mountain or rock climbing that I can do. One year I scuba dove. One year I did this past summit. I did adaptive fencing, which was really cool. So
because that's a fun sport.
Yeah,
and it takes a lot of mental and physical skill.
It was very, very cool. And so every year I'm just trying to kind of one-up myself every year to continue to push myself outside of my comfort zone. So I have lived the messages that I share in the programs that I do, and I hope that I can use, particularly in that program, I hope I can use that message to motivate my audiences to think, what is that thing that's holding me back? Like, am I not talking to that person that I've always wanted to talk to? Am I, not trying out for a sport or a club? Am I not doing something that's holding me back from being the best version of myself that I can possibly be?
Applying to an internship because I don't go to the right Ivy League school.
Right.
When that's an excuse.
Right. And it's like, and I've always sort of thought like that. And so in my programs that I do, I'm always trying to use me as the sort of conduit, but to get the audience to get there too. Because I want my audiences to leave my programs and be like, wow, I really do need to get out of my comfort zone. I need to try something new. Because really getting out of your comfort zone is just doing something that is completely out of your normal realm of what you would normally do. Do something that, like, if you were to tell your friends about it, they would be like, wow, I wouldn't expect you to do that. That's what getting out of your comfort zone is all about. And oftentimes, if you do that, you can find a new passion, you can meet new people, and you can become a better version of yourself, which I think ultimately that's what we all want.
We want to evolve into better always. That's our hope.
Exactly.
So you said something that I want to touch on.
Sure.
Because in one of the presentations I was in that you were facilitating, you do 5-minute 5-minute.
I call them Matthew minutes.
Matthew minutes. I couldn't
Yes.
remember that. Thank you. And it was actually very sad because the young lady that chose to share, she had a brother with cerebral palsy.
Sure.
And they were not located in a part of the United States where there were a lot of public support services medically and things.
Sure.
And I remember that she started to cry because she had just lost him the year before, and she felt that if he had met you, or if their family had been aware of some of the laws, some of the medical treatments available, that she really truly believed that he would still be alive.
Sure.
And of course, my heart absolutely broke. And I watched on your face as you were taking in what she was sharing. Your heart was breaking also.
It was.
But let's go back to public policy, because you're actually a lobbyist. And part of your vision as a lobbyist is for families such as hers, as well as continuing to mainstream opportunities for people that aren't able-bodied. And I know that that's very near and dear to you.
Yes.
And when you're out and you hear these stories, it reinforces the importance of lobbying.
Yes.
So could you share a little bit about that part of your world, please?
Yeah, so sure. As I said, I love politics. And so anytime I can sort of be in that world, I try to be. And I, whether it's my speaking or my lobbying, I've always said my greatest strength is my ability to communicate and my ability to speak as eloquently and clearly as I do. So as you said a little bit earlier, I try to be a voice for those that don't have a voice. And so that's really what motivates me to do not only my public speaking, but my lobbying, because we have so much work that we still need to do as a society. And I try to push for, right now mainly in Virginia policies, try to push for changes that will help people get jobs in communities and not be in what's called shelter workshops, and make at or above minimum wage salaries, just like their able-bodied peers are able to do. And so I'm always trying to work with legislators, work with policymakers to kind of get us in a better position to where I ultimately want to see a community and a society where there are no barriers and there are no sort of afterthoughts when it comes to disability. So often, in a lot of instances, things are done after the fact. And events in our communities aren't fully inclusive. I want a world that is fully inclusive, that has no barriers whatsoever, and no one would come up to me in that type of world and say, I'm glad you're out today. It would just be, I'm just another person that's out in my community trying to do good work or trying to experience this community event. But we're not there yet. And so, that's where I spend every day trying to help people understand why that way might be better. And I use my strength, my voice, to be that change and try to be that change. it's a day-to-day grind. It's a day-to-day struggle. I have good days and bad days like everyone does, but and we've made progress. But as I continue to say, we have a lot more progress to make. And so I hope I'm there to help do that.
And so you're a lobbyist, you're a public speaker, but we're not done yet.
No, I'm a busy man.
Yeah, you also are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You have your own business.
Yes.
Along with podcasts. Tell me what that business is called, because I love this.
Yeah. So it's called Six Wheels Consulting. And so Six Wheels, there are three components to it. It's the speaking, it's the lobbying, and then the other piece is the consulting side. So on a consulting front, I will do assessments of spaces, not necessarily from an ADA perspective, but from a common sense perspective. There are so many things in our world that are not accessible and inclusive for very, very silly reasons. One of the things I always talk about, and it drives me nuts, is someone will put a trash can right in front of the push button to the elevator. That trash can doesn't need to be there, but it's
aesthetically it needs to be there.
Sure, but it doesn't necessarily make it. It doesn't.
It's not empowering the people who need the button,
to do everything on their own. So it's things like that where they'll put a bazillion chairs out when they really only need maybe like 50, and then those extra chairs become other barriers to me being able to fully have access to whatever the space is. And so I'll do assessments of spaces. I will do, I've helped develop webinars for different organizations. I will develop white papers, like anything that businesses want to do to make their world more inclusive, I try to help with. Disability is probably one of, if not the largest, one of the largest minority groups that we don't talk about as much as we talk about LGBTQ issues, issues of people of color, anything like that. And so, the disability community makes up 56 million Americans in this country. So why we don't sort of have that as forefront of our conversations when we're having these larger diversity conversations, and we're doing that, has always been very confusing to me. And so in any of my work, whether it's the consulting, speaking, or lobbying, like that is ultimately what I'm trying to change, is the perception that society overall has of people with disabilities. Because right now the perception is, we need to help them as much as we can, or they're not capable of doing anything. And I hope my story and my drive proves that wrong, because I'm not somebody that likes to sit still. Like, I'm always looking for, what can I do to be better? What can I do to help make change? And whether that's through my Six Wheels consulting, or my lobbying, or my speaking, or my podcast, I'm trying to change. The audience that I'm trying to reach is not people with disabilities. It's everyone else.
It's the able.
Yeah, it's the able-bodied individuals. And so I strive every day through any type of work that I'm doing to do that. I hope, like I said, that we can get to a point where it's not shocking that I'm out in public, or it's not shocking that, when I'm at a restaurant and somebody sees me at the restaurant, rather than asking me what I want to drink or whatever, oftentimes what happens is they ask my parent or whoever's with me, what does he want? Not knowing that I am fully capable of communicating and making my own decisions. Like, those are the types of things that we still have so much work to do to solve. And I hope any avenue that I take to do that in the work that I do tries to change that.
Well, and you've had some really cool opportunities to get the able-bodied community's attention with platforms you've had, because you've had the honor of being recognized as an outstanding leader, and it was, you'll have to help me here,
Sure.
I know it was the 40 under 40, but also there's one out there for businesses, and then there's one for under 18 or under 21? Under 16. So you've had platforms for 16 under 16 and 40 under 40, as well as and then the business side. So congratulations, because that means people aren't seeing a wheelchair, they're seeing the accomplishments you're making, and it's empowering your voice to get out there even farther.
Yeah,
which is so exciting.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and I'm very fortunate and lucky and blessed to be as successful as I've been. Getting 40 under 40 and 16 under 16, and then getting the Metropolitan award that I got. And so, Metropolitan Business League, excuse me, they gave me an award, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. And that to me says that the work I'm doing means something.
It's impacting.
And it's impacting people. And so, that means I'm doing something right, which is all I can ask for. That doesn't stop me from continuing to drive every day and continuing to be, I consider myself a rebel rouser, right?
And I'm guessing that success lights a fire behind you to keep you motivated to move forward.
Absolutely.
Where, so many times people in life, they're doing and they're doing and they're doing, and they're like, am I making a difference? Am I making a difference? Because there's a lot of thankless days when you're a lobbyist, when you're a spokesperson. But then when that comes down the aisle, it's okay. They're just noticing it, and I'm just now getting the award. But this is fuel that it's in the right direction, and let's keep moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that gratification, and that's not.
You don't do it for that, but man, does it help?
Right, and you're right. I don't do it for that, but it shows that what I'm doing is making an impact and a difference, and people, outside of my own personal sphere that knows the work that I'm doing is really important. People outside of that sphere then recognize that and realize, wow, this guy is trying to do something really important, and so that's why those awards and those recognitions are great. I don't, like I said, I don't do it for my own personal benefit or to receive the limelight. I just do it so to help people recognize that the work I'm doing is why it's so important to me and why we need to continue pushing forward on it.
Well, from the time we met a few years back, you have been an inspiration to me. You've been a great friend. You've also been a great guide. And I know that someone watching today is inspired. You've once again done what you naturally do because it's a passion from your inside that radiates out.
And if I may, because this is something that I talk about a lot, actually, like, I'm not here to be inspirational, right? I just am here, and I'm not pushing back on that at all, but that is one of the...
It's a natural thing, it just happens.
It is, and it's a thing that I try to get more comfortable with, but I also, I don't aim to be an inspiration. Like I say, I'm just a 28-year-old who has to put my pants on a little bit differently from the way that you do. That doesn't make me any more awesome than you are, because you are awesome yourself. And so, that is one of those things that we sort of have to change that dialogue, because, I'm very grateful when people tell me I'm an inspiration, but that's not my goal.
Well, and I have to clarify.
Yes.
The inspiration doesn't come from the wheelchair. The inspiration comes from your friendship of iron sharpening iron.
Yes, exactly.
And so you don't have that with every individual, with every motivational speaker, with every consultant. That's a natural gift that's inside you that comes out. You just happen to be in a wheelchair.
Yes.
So learn to accept it, because we're not saying it because
I
you're in a wheelchair.
I know.
And I love you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
So if someone wants to reach out and get in touch with you for your consulting, or they're curious about lobbying, maybe they're interested in getting involved within their community, how would they go about getting in contact with you? What's your contact info?
Really good question. So I'm all over social media. My business organization, as I said, is called Six Wheels Consulting. It's the number 6, so the number 6 and then Wheels Consulting. My website is sixwheelsconsulting.com. Have social media platforms for all of those. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then I also, for my speaking stuff, I have another sort of website that's MatthewShapirospeaking.com. So if somebody wants to bring me in to do one of my programs, or would love to have questions about what I do with Six Wheels or what I do with my speaking, that's how they can get me. I would love to talk to anyone who's watching or will see this and help them in any way that I can.
Well, we thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking
My
time
pleasure.
out of your schedule because it's hectic. Obviously, we
Yes.
just heard how crazy and busy you are.
Yes.
But thank you for being here and
Sure.
sharing with us what you are doing and the goals you have set to make a difference in our world.
Thank you very much.
We hope that you have also been inspired today, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. I'm Sharinda. Until next time, be well.